I got the text a year after our papers were signed. "We need to talk, urgent." It was from her, Alejandra. I stared at the screen like it burned. I typed back, "Steady, another time, I'm on a date with your sister." My thumb hovered, I hit send. The laugh that bubbled up felt wrong. The next morning the neighbor knocked. His face said what he would not. That day everything I thought I knew split open. Something else was coming. I just didn't know how fast. Houston sleeps different in the summer. The air tastes like barbecue smoke and cut grass. My block hums with kids on bikes, church vans slipping by, and old men sitting on porches nodding at each other. I grew into that rhythm. I know the sound of Mrs. Daniels' radio at 6. I know the cadence of the corner preacher's voice on Sundays. That life is in my bones. Our house before was honest. Brick, small yard, a white porch with a sagging swing. Inside, the sofa was soft from years of Saturday naps. The kitchen light always had that warm yellow cast by evening. Alejandra liked candles. She'd set them on the mantel and hum while she chopped. She made coffee thick. She left little notes on the fridge for me. "Fred, dentist tomorrow, don't forget." Those notes felt like promises. We had routines. I got up early and hit the gym. I'd come home with a towel around my neck and a shirt that smelled like iron and sweat. She'd be in the kitchen at the stove. We'd talk about small things, work, the neighbor's new truck, Uncle Ray's heart meds. Our voices fit. We laughed loud at each other in the living room. We held hands in the car at stoplights like we were hiding it from the world. Family was everything. My cousin Marcus came over for Sunday dinners. My mama called at odd hours to talk about health in church and how a man should behave. Alejandra fit in. She brought tamales to Christmas. My aunt liked her hair. My kids, well, the kids were gone before the divorce, but we had friends, kids who ran through the house like it was still theirs. The neighborhood respected us. We were one of those couples other folks used as an example. I liked that quiet pride. Inside, though, small cracks showed. A missed call, a doorway glance she didn't finish. I remember the night she paused over the sink and didn't tell me where she'd been. I remember the way the porch light felt too bright that week, as if it revealed too much. I kept telling myself it was stress. I kept telling my chest to calm, but the air shifted. Little things like the click of a phone in a pocket started to mean more. That year after the divorce, I tried to keep the old rhythms. I still sat on that porch sometimes. I still smelled her candle wax in my head when the house was empty. When the text came, the house was quieter than usual. The hum of the street sounded like a question. I would soon learn why. It was subtle at first, like a song that skips a beat. Alejandra started to change the station without saying why. She would stand in the kitchen a long time, looking out at the street, then turn to me with a smile that never reached her eyes. "Fred, you good?" I asked one night, hands in my pockets, the porch light making long bars across the floorboards. She shrugged. "Just tired," she said. Her voice was soft, too soft. She moved like someone carrying a secret. Her phone buzzed more. She kept it face down on the table. When we ate, her fork paused midair more than before. I noticed the way she pulled her sweater tight across her chest like a shield. I tried not to read into it. I told myself men make mountains from molehills. I told Marcus that maybe it was work. "Women hold 100 things," he said once, sipping his sweet tea. "They don't always tell us." His words calmed me that night. I let it lie. Then the wardrobe changed. Alejandra started dressing different, not flashy, quietly different. New shoes that clicked on hardwood, a perfume that smelled like peaches and something sharper underneath. She'd come home and change clothes more often. She'd do her hair and then stop halfway as if waiting for someone else's approval. When I asked, she laughed it off. "I'm just exploring," she'd say. The laugh felt like smoke. She worked late more, calls at midnight. "Project deadline," she said. I could hear the strain, but the voice when she whispered goodnight, it had a distance. Her eyes searched the ceiling like they wanted out. She started to close doors behind her. The small things multiplied. I tried gentle tests. I'd say, "Why you acting different?" and watch her eyes for cracks. She'd hand me a brush and say, "You always overthink, Fred." Sometimes she said, "You good," back like she was mirroring me. I hated that. I wanted honesty. Instead, I got layers. One afternoon, I came home early from the store. The house smelled like coffee and something sweet. I heard muffled laughter from the bedroom. My heart thudded not from fear but from that old protective instinct. I stood at the door and watched the doorway shadow. Her silhouette moved close to another shape. The laugh stopped. Footsteps padded away. The bedroom door clicked shut. I knocked. Everything okay? My voice was even. She opened the door with a smile too fast, cheeks flushed. "Yeah, just watching a show," she said. The television played a cooking channel, no one else in the house. Her phone lay on the dresser, screen dark. I let it go that time. I told myself I'd trust her. But trust started to feel like a fragile glass. It shook in my hands. I noticed her phone tucked deeper into her purse. I noticed charges on the account, little dinners, rides. I noticed that her laughter on the phone had a cadence that matched no one I knew. There were also the small silences. When I'd walk into a room, conversations would halt. The room would smell like a perfume I didn't know. She'd say, "You imagined it," with a tilt to her head. My stomach tightened. The more I questioned, the more she seemed to wrap herself in normalcy, cooking, humming, asking about my day. But something under it pulsed like an undertow. Late one night, the house was quiet. I heard the closet door shuffle. I slipped down the hall and looked through the cracked bedroom door. Her phone lit up on the nightstand. A name I'd never seen blurred on the screen, not a number, a name. She clicked the message closed. I stood rooted. The house held its breath. I wanted to walk in and demand answers. My mouth stayed shut. Fear and pride battled in my chest. I left the hallway then. I told myself I'd talk in the morning. I told myself I'd be calm. But that night I couldn't sleep. Images crowded my head. Small moments kept rearranging into something bigger. The next day, a neighbor mentioned she'd seen a legend leave with a man. My gut flipped. The fence between doubt and proof thinned. I was close to a truth I didn't want to touch. I was a man who smelled betrayal in the air, but I had no fire yet. The next thing I found would be the spark. The discovery didn't happen with a scream. It came quiet. It felt like a shutter falling. I remember the light, late afternoon, gold cutting through the curtains. The house was a hush. Alejandra said she was at work. I had a few hours. I told myself I'd use them to breathe. I was upstairs putting paperwork in a drawer. I'd learned details about the house over years. Little drawers that stuck. An envelope under a stack of bills. When I pulled the drawer open, something slipped free and hit the floor. A receipt. At first I thought it was for flowers. Then I saw the name on it, an upscale hotel in town. The date, a weekday night. My chest went cold. I did the thing a man promises he won't do. I looked. Her email was open on the laptop. A headline caught my eye. It was a calendar invite. Confirmed. The address matched the hotel. My hands shook so hard I dropped the mouse. The cursor spun like a small planet. I forced myself to breathe. I found a photo folder buried deep inside her cloud files. Thumbnails of a man, hands on her waist, her head on his shoulder, smiles that cut across my gut. The images were careful cropped. No faces full in frame except hers. I zoomed. I tried to read the mood in the pixels. Her hair was loose. She looked younger. The image of her laughing, God, she looked happy in a way I hadn't seen in months. My world narrowed to the screen, sounds muffled. The hum of the refrigerator became loud. I could hear my own pulse in my ears. My hands went numb. I closed the laptop like it was a wound. I sat on the edge of the bed and hugged my knees. I couldn't make the thought back into smallness. I could not unsee her smile. I waited. I listened for her truck. I listened for the sound of keys in the lock. When her footsteps came, gentle on the porch, I heard every nuance. She stepped in, took off her shoes, and called out, "Hey." Her voice was light. I stood. She tilted her head. "You all right?" I couldn't speak straight away. The sight of her in the doorway, hair in a loose bun, sweater a little off her shoulder, everything was normal. She walked over and kissed my cheek. Her lips brushed my skin like a dare. "Where were you?" I asked. It came out flat. "Long meeting," she replied. "They said they'd wrap tonight." She sat, Her knee brushed mine. The moment threatened to dissolve. I wanted to throw the laptop on the bed and show her the photos. I wanted to shout. Instead, I pressed a hand to my face and kept my voice quiet. "I found something," I said. Her smile faltered for a beat. She leaned forward. "What?" "I found a receipt," I said. "A calendar invite." I watched her eyes. She blinked. Her mouth went dry. She crossed her arms. "Fred, you going through my stuff?" The accusation landed like a slap. I felt it. But the laptop with its images lay in my head like an ember. I started. My throat closed. I felt ridiculous for the way it hurt. How could a few pictures do this? But they had. The room smelled suddenly of coffee and something else. I watched her hands. They trembled. She got up and went to the sink. Water ran. The small domestic sound was a mockery. She leaned against the counter, breathing shallow. "I didn't mean for you to find out like this," she said. Her voice broke. For a second I saw the woman I married, uncertain, human, afraid. I wanted to believe the apology. I wanted to forgive. But the photos had already formed a new truth in me. I felt betrayed, and I felt a loneliness that uncoiled in my chest. The house that had once been safe felt like a stage. Every corner held a question. That night I realized everything was about to change. The man in the photos had a name in the metadata. I wrote it down on a napkin and folded it into my pocket. I let Alejandra sleep beside me like nothing was wrong, but I did not sleep. I sat up and watched the ceiling. My mind moved like a chess player, cold, precise. I was not ready to strike. Not yet. I needed a plan. I needed proof that could not be waved away as imagination. The next moves would decide everything. I am not a loud man. I do not break things. I do not storm doors. That isn't me. When betrayal cuts deep, a different part wakes up. I went quiet. I watched. I gathered. This was not about revenge for show. It was about reclaiming what was mine, my name, my dignity, my life. First, evidence. I learned to be patient. I kept the napkin with the name tucked in my wallet like a loaded card. I started keeping receipts of my own. I reviewed bank statements. I set up a burner email and used it like a magnifying glass. I watched transactions with a steady eye. When Alejandra paid for dinners, I made note. When a Lyft charge appeared, I logged the date. At night, I sat in the glow of my phone and let the city breathe outside. The screen's cold light became my lamp. I would open her messages when she left her phone near the couch. I saved threads. I copied photos. I printed a few things and put them in a manila folder I labeled quietly, "For Fred." The folder lived under the loose floorboard in the closet. The wood smelled like old shoes. I moved money, not in a flashy way, small transfers. I put accounts in my name, arranged paperwork for legal counsel. I called an attorney, one who understood black men's pride and knew how to move without drama. He said things in plain language that settled like gravel in my stomach. "We'll secure assets," he said. "We'll protect your name." I liked that. I liked his calm. Meanwhile, I acted normal. I kissed Alejandra in the kitchen. I hummed while I did dishes. I went to the gym and ran harder. I laughed at jokes I didn't find funny. I asked her about her day and meant it. She noticed less than I thought. People in our circle saw nothing. Marcus asked if I was okay. I said I was. He wanted to believe me. Some nights I told Marcus pieces of what I knew. He shook his head. "You keep playing detective, Fred. Don't let it eat you." He had a point. But I'd rather be the man who planned than the man who lost himself to a single moment of fury. I also called a close friend, Tanya. She knew how to read a room. "Keep it calm," she advised. "Get the paperwork. Don't move too fast." She came over once and sat at my kitchen table while I showed her the folder. Her eyes widened, but she kept her voice low. "You sure you want to do this the quiet way?" she asked. "Yes," I said. The word felt like a promise to myself. Quiet was a power many don't see. People expect fireworks. They don't expect slow erosion. I took control of small things, changed passwords, set up alerts, put locks on accounts. I made a list of assets, of debts, of things that could be used against me. I learned the language of contracts. I sat at my desk and read like a man learning to rebuild a house from the foundation. The plan had a human side. I watched Allegendra's patterns. I learned when she left the house, who she texted, where she went when the lights were off. I followed at a distance once, staying inside my truck while she met someone at a cafe. She laughed into the man's shoulder and the sight twisted me, but I kept my head. I took a picture from across the street with a phone stuffed in my jacket. Evidence. Quiet. There were nights I felt monstrous. I would stand on the porch and remember our vows. I remembered her hands on the stove and her laugh in the rain. That memory pained me. I did not want to be cruel for cruelty's sake. I wanted justice that fit the hurt. Each step I took, I asked myself if it would stand up in court and in the court of men's judgment. If it was only for show, I let it go. If it cut to the truth, I kept it. People around us began to sense something. My cousin looked at me differently. My aunt called and said, "You sound tired." I nodded when they said it, but inside I was hunting. I stored screenshots, bank records, hotel receipts, the photos from the cloud. I had enough to make a case that would not rely on rage. I had enough to show a pattern. The day I chose to confront her, I planned the scene like a man preparing for a test. I picked a day that would hurt, not for spectacle, for truth. I printed everything and put it into the manila folder. I had certified mail ready if it came to that. I set up a sitter for the house. I wore a dark shirt that made me look composed. I practiced my words in the mirror until my voice sounded like the man I wanted to be, calm, unafraid, sure. By then, the manila folder weighed heavy in my hands. Not because of the paper, because of the meaning. I had become a quiet storm. The night before the confrontation, I slept on the couch with the folder under my knee. I woke with the knowledge that after tomorrow, something would be broken for good. I felt ready. I felt no joy, only resolve. The next morning, I would step into the kitchen and face what had been done. I would no longer be the same man. I picked an ordinary evening. Not an anniversary, not a shout, just a Tuesday with the sky going dark. Allegendra came home humming. She changed into a dress that made her laugh like she felt 20 again. I grabbed the folder, feeling the papers like a small weapon. Marcus was on the porch in case things got rough. He gave me a look that said, "Handle it." I nodded. We sat at the table. The lamp lit the room soft. The children across the street played until the streetlight flicked on. I poured 2 glasses of water and set the folder between us like it was a plate. She tilted her head when she saw it. "Fred, what's that?" she asked, voice careful. I did not rush. I let the silence sit. "Allegendra," I said, my voice was even. "We need to talk." She tried to keep the smile. "Is this about the rent? I can." I opened the folder. Receipts, printouts, screenshots slid into view. A calendar invite. Photos with timestamps. Hotel receipts. Bank transfers. It was all there in neat stacks like testimony. Her face folded slow as she read. I watched her fingers tremble. "You don't have to do this," she whispered when the room got small. "I already did it," I said. "I kept everything. I kept calm. I wanted you to be able to tell the truth." I watched her. She was quiet. Those eyes that used to meet mine like a mirror looked at the papers like a stranger. She reached out and knocked a paper toward me. "You can't show that," she said. The plea sounded like a child bargaining for a toy. "This isn't about showing," I said. "This is about facing." I felt safe in that word, facing. We both had to. Then the excuses came, quick and polished. "It wasn't what you think. It was a mistake. I was lonely." The words were earnest but thin. She cried and the sound shredded me. "I never meant to hurt you," she said with that raw human edge. I listened. I felt every syllable. I wanted to shout. Instead, I asked the questions that mattered. "Who is he?" I asked. "How long?" Her answers stumbled. Names fell like pebbles in a well. "A friend," she said. 2 months. 2 months. The numbers were concrete now. Her hands covered her mouth. My voice stayed calm. "You signed our papers a year ago," I said. "We moved forward. You had space. You chose this." The room tilted. She cried harder. She looked at me not as a wife but as someone who had to explain. Family came next. Her sister's name, the one I joked about in the beginning, was mentioned. Allegendra's face flinched. "Don't drag her into this," she said. She didn't, her voice cracked. I put a finger on a printout where a string of messages hinted at meetings and late-night plans with someone who matched the man in the photos. The facts were patient, like a jury. At the end, she reached for me like a drowning person. "Fred, please, I love you in some ways, but I also—" She couldn't finish. I had to make a decision about how I'd leave this room. I could yell and break. I could throw the folder on the floor and storm out. I could call the attorney right there. But I wanted the weight of truth to sink in without spectacle. So I told her, soft but steady, "I'm not here to hurt you. I want honesty. I want the truth." She folded in on herself and told me things I'd never imagined. Nights she lied, the late texts, the weekend at the hotel, the laughter that wasn't mine. I didn't interrupt. I sat still and let each word fall onto the table like a cold plate. When she finished, her shoulders shook. She was a portrait of regret. Then her voice lifted with a final plea. "Please don't ruin everything," she begged. "We can work." But there was a line. That line had been crossed. I had already done my work. The legal protections were in place. The assets were separated. The papers wouldn't be tossed aside by a plea. I stood and reached for my phone. I called the attorney. I set the wheels moving that night, changes that would ensure the truth had consequences. She sank to the chair and held her face. "You're doing this for show," she said between sobs. "This isn't show," I replied. "This is closure." I kept my voice low. I felt no triumph. I felt the hollow ache of a man who had been betrayed and had not let it make him small. She knew then she had already lost, not because I wanted vengeance, but because I had chosen to protect myself and to demand honesty. The house that once belonged to both of us would now be a place where truth was accounted for. She understood. The silence in the room was not empty. It was final. She looked up at me for one last time, eyes full of 1,000 small regrets. I walked out onto the porch and breathed the night air. The city lights glittered like uncounted promises. I had taken my power back without spectacle. She had her breaking. I had my calm. The next chapter would be quiet but sure. Revenge, for me, was never about humiliation. It was about restoration. I wanted to walk away with my name intact. I wanted to leave with dignity. What followed was a slow unspooling. Legally, the case was straightforward. My attorney moved with precision. We presented the pattern: receipts, messages, photos, meetings. The judge listened. The community watched. Alejandra tried to explain, to apologize, to salvage appearances. But truth was a stubborn thing. She lost privileges we once took for granted. The house, our house, became part of the separation terms. She lost the lease to the townhome she'd signed onto behind my back. Bank accounts were frozen and reallocated. I watched the paperwork unfold like a map of what had been and what would be. The whispers came. That's the thing in our neighborhood. People talked over fences and at church basements. Some said I was cold. Some said I was right. The ladies at the beauty shop discussed it while blow dryers hummed. Marcus clapped me on the back and said, "You handled it like a man." My aunt called and left a voicemail that said, "You did good, boy. Keep your head up." Those small affirmations stitched me back together a bit. Alejandra's world shrank. She lost status at work after the scandal leaked in ways she didn't expect. Colleagues who once smiled at her gave polite distance. Her sister, who I joked about to mask my pain, pulled back like a tide. Family dinners she used to attend were no longer as warm. I didn't revel in her fall. I watched from a distance. Her regret was private and raw. Meanwhile, I rebuilt. I changed locks and cleared debts I could manage. I reconnected with friends I'd let drift. I joined a morning run group and felt the city in my lungs. I visited my mama more. I learned to sleep without the weight draped over my chest. In small ways, my life became mine again. There were symbolic moments. Standing at dawn, driving down I-45, the skyline stretching like a city of possibilities. The sun came up over the freeway, and for the first time in months I felt a shift. It was not total healing, but it was a clean start. I found peace in simple things. A cup of coffee on the porch, Marcus, laugh echoing down the hall, the rhythm of a new routine. The community response was complicated. Some neighbors sent small notes. A few crossed the street when they saw me, not out of malice but uncertainty. My name had been inside a story now. People would tell it their way. I couldn't control that. I could only control how I walked through it. Alejandra reached out months later asking to talk. I met her at a coffee shop table by the window. She apologized with a softness that felt like rain. I listened. I forgave in a way that honored myself not to let her off the hook. Forgiveness was mine to give. I told her the things I had to say, how trust had been a currency, how she spent it. She cried. I left with no bitterness but with a clear spine. My revenge had been to take back my life, to remove her ability to destabilize me, to ensure she could not weaponize lies or hidden accounts against me. I didn't seek to burn bridges. I simply built a new path. The house eventually sold. I watched the moving truck pull away one morning. The porch swing creaked in the breeze like it was waving goodbye. People ask if I felt triumphant. Not really. I felt wholer, stronger in the quiet places. I could stand in church and look at my hands and not flinch at the memory. I could sit in a room and feel safe again. That is the real victory. At night I still remembered the sound of her laugh in another man's ear. Sometimes anger still flared, but the flames cooled faster. I had plans. I dated later slowly. I met someone who loved the small, honest parts of life. She didn't fix the old wounds. She offered a new song. The neighborhood still talks. People remember. But I walk these streets with a steadier gait. The wrong that was done to me had consequences. It did not define me. I reclaimed my story and walked forward with quiet dignity. If you're sitting in the dark after someone you love chose another path, know this: pain is honest. It will cut you, but it will also teach you what you will not tolerate. I learned to be patient and precise. I learned that calm can be a kind of power. I learned that revenge doesn't need to shout. It can be the quiet act of protecting your name and your peace. To any brother out there who feels betrayed, take care of the facts. Get counsel. Keep your dignity. Let the truth do the heavy lifting. And hold on to small joys, Sunday dinners, a run at dawn, your mama's voice. Those things will stitch you back together. I'm Fred. I built my life back one patient brick at a time. I didn't shout my victory, I lived it. If you're listening, remember, strength is silent. Let it show in what you save, not just what you break.